Paul, good to have you on here, sir. Thank you for coming on the 200th episode.
200th.
200th.
Congratulations, man.
Thank
That's
you.
really
Thank
cool.
you.
That's a milestone.
Yeah, huge, huge. And I mean, thank you for coming on and coming back on and coming back on. This is now
Yeah, third time.
the third time. Yeah.
I
And thank
usually
you.
I usually do it outside, but it's way too windy, so
I understand. And it's nice. I feel like you knew that it was the 200th and there needed to be like a special kind of arrangement here. So I do
you know
appreciate it.
what? I made a little picture of margaritas.
Oh, that's good.
Um,
That's good.
I have
Uh,
some extra salt.
What what goes into your margaritas? How are you making them?
This one I have some watermelon juice and some jalapenos
Oh,
and
all right.
some tahini and a lot of lime juice. That's it. That's all
That's
you
good.
need. That's all you
It
need.
it's a good combination. Are you getting margs on the reg when you're in a bar? You go get a margarita or
This time of year, yeah, summertime,
and what about winter time? What's your go-to?
winter time. You know what? I don't really drink that much in the winter. If I do, it's just beer.
Good deal. What's your go-to beer? You go, let me get a
Honestly, I feel like people talk a lot of shit on IPAs, but I don't like if I'm out and about these days, unless it's at a show, obviously, but like if I go to a bar, I'm usually like two, maybe three beers, so IPAs take you a long way. Just like, I'm not trying to knock a bunch back. I'm like just sipping.
yeah, because it'll make you feel sluggish if you're just pounding a
Literally.
couple.
I went to my buddy's bachelor party. Actually, it was like the night before his wedding. He didn't really have a bachelor party, so a bunch of old high school buddies got together, and we went to some like micro brewery in Colorado. And I didn't realize like how strong the beers were, and like I totally blacked out on the way home or on the way to the hotel, and I like straight up just I didn't even make it to the bed. I was like asleep on the ground, and
Oh
there's
my
like
gosh.
a pool of puke next to me, and then I had to go to the wedding the next day. I just totally fucking hungover, and so now I know it's like you do two, maybe three of those, and then you switch to like a Corona, just cruising altitude.
Okay, right. Well, I appreciate you letting us know. Thank you for learning for us, Paul.
Yeah. Any tips? Any tricky tips? You come to me.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate
Go
it.
for PQ.
The last time we saw each other, it was at Monty Bar, not too
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were playing with Kenny Masucci,
McKenzie.
Masucci, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and Quad Super Six, where it was also played.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're cool.
yeah,
I
and
like how their drummer did a lot of beats where he's just like playing the maracas, and like regular drum set for the rest, but I always love that. And then Kenny was just straight up sounded like Ween,
yeah,
I
and
fucking love it.
shout out to all those dudes. The Quad Super Six guys, I've known them for quite a while. Those
Oh, I didn't know that.
the
Okay.
dudes in yeah, they're Orange County kind of guys. So yeah, shout out to the Quad and shout out to Kenny. All great guys. Yeah, that was a stacked lineup. I unfortunately didn't make it to their sets, but I did make it in time, like right before you started. And
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So made it
That's
out there.
cool.
Yeah, that was a fantastic performance, man.
Thanks. It's like it's a work in progress. Um, but yeah, it's just something I started doing like about a year and a half ago. I actually had a kind of similar project in Pittsburgh with my buddy Eric Yeshke, who taught me how to use samplers. He's like he's a hip hop dude, but he also has he like totally knows his shit about like krautrock and noise rock and noise music and like sonic youth. But he taught me how to use an MPC sampler. Um, and he's like, do you know this guy in LA, Al Lover?
Do I know the name? I don't know him though. Yeah, but I know you're talking about.
they're both very similar in that they come from like both worlds, like hip hop and like psych rock and noise rock and stuff. It's like I've become friends with Al. He's a super cool dude. We might make some music together too. But anyway, so
Cool.
Eric and I had this. We actually had a duo where I played drums and he did all the sampler stuff, and we called it Expensive Shit. And it's pretty similar. It was pretty similar to what I'm doing now. And I was like, dude, open invitation anytime you want to join me, you know. But he's in Pittsburgh. But who knows? Maybe we'll play some shows together.
So stay tuned for that. Maybe, maybe
Yeah,
not, but yeah, I mean, you got to keep people on their toes. So
always.
always. I mean, yeah, you'll teach people a couple of things of how to drink, but then, some stuff is left to the imagination,
Yeah.
which is understandable.
Yeah, the
Uh,
next show I give is it's just gonna be a workshop. This like Q&A,
yeah, that'd be really cool.
like
Like play
PowerPoint.
play a little bit, yeah,
Mm.
projection on the wall. Yeah, that'd be really good. Um,
I do like a little cooking demonstration.
yeah, maybe show how to make some marks and stuff. It's a really
Yeah.
great treat. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll have a headset. Um, just like nothing too fancy. A lot of like hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, party party bites.
Yeah. Like on a charcuterie board
Mm.
of some sort. Right, right.
Mm.
I'm looking forward to that. I know you kind of touched base on that a little bit the last time I saw you live, and I was like, oh, this would be really cool when it's expanded upon. So I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be good.
Sorry,
Yeah.
my dog's being a pain in the ass.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It's a 200th. Okay.
Yeah,
I've seen it
anything. There's
before.
no fucking rules.
It doesn't even matter. Yeah.
It's just gonna go where it goes.
On that note, though, I really do appreciate everyone who has listened over these years, and even if you just checked out just a little bit, or you're just gonna stop the podcast right here, I really do appreciate it. So thank you for watching and listening to whoever. I mean, I know you, Paul, you're always commenting on the YouTube. Oh, this is a sick one. This is like a bad question. All this stuff. So
Yeah, I had to delete a bunch. I was like, all right, I'm overdoing it.
yeah, and you timestamp stuff, and you go, this guy fell off, and all this, which is, I mean, it's good for the algorithm, though. So I do appreciate it, and I want you to come back and do some more. But yeah, so
How many does that average out to? Is that one a week or two a week?
it was one a week. That was a big thing. Last year I did 52 last year. That was one every week. And when I started this, there was no way I thought that I would ever be able to do that. So
Props.
that was a big milestone.
Respect.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And I've been able to talk to a bunch of great people, including yourself, and I appreciate you being here for this historic 200th one. And I know that you won't be talking shit in the comments, so
But
that's yeah.
not on this one.
Or maybe under a ghost account. I don't know. It's too early to tell on that. So
I'll hype it up.
going back to going back to the music though, when you started Expensive Shit, was that around the time of Drums and Wires, what you were doing with Nick Murray?
Kind of, yeah. It was a similar. I'm using a similar setup where I have some like 80s drum pads and also my sampler. So like the 80s drum pads are going through like this old drum brain, which the sounds on their own are kind of corny, but then you put them through like distortion, delay, and other effects pedals, and it starts to sound melodic and like kind of weird and fucked up. Um, and then I have my sampler, so I can, take samples of literally anything. So it's kind of a mix of both of those, and I'm trying not to make it sequenced, so mostly live, and I just do like the tap of the delay to kind of keep time.
Yeah.
So it makes it like a little more free form, and like I, for each song that I have like a loose structure, but like it just go into like different parts, basically just based on feel.
Just mostly improvising throughout the set.
Kind of, yeah. Like I said, there's a loose structure, but yeah, it's pretty much the same setup that I used when I did that show with Nick. We only did that one show, just for whatever reason, like it just seemed like it would be easier for me to just do it on my own, you know? Um, because like I said, just going into different parts and changes, it's like when you add another person, then it's just more rehearsal and more like having to have a sort of structure to
Right,
it, you
right. I
know?
mean, that'd be so insane playing with another person at all. I don't know if you've ever done that, but like it just seems so tricky to play with two different drummers. I don't know if that's in your wheelhouse or not, but yeah,
Yeah, I would, God, I would hate to ever have to do that.
people have like talked about it. It's like, yeah, okay, like that's an interesting idea, but I don't see anybody doing it, which is just it'd be insane.
Yeah, once was enough.
Um, do you usually start with like the electronic portion of it before you're getting into the actual beats, or vice versa, or a mixture of both?
That's a good question. It depends. Yeah, sometimes I'll have a beat or a rhythm and I'm trying to find something that fits with it, but most of the time I'll just be fucking around with just the sounds, like experimenting with sounds, and it's, like these giant triangular drum pads. So I'll just be like hitting them, fucking with pedals, and then I get a sound that I think sounds really cool, and then it almost is like the beat just writes itself because I'll be playing along because it's not just like the rhythm of it. I'll hear weird because it's going through so many different guitar pedals. I'll start hearing these weird intonations that in my mind create rhythm. So I hear like rhythmic patterns. But yeah, it's kind of it's usually how it goes. It goes pretty quickly. Um, it's been difficult to come up with stuff just because of time issues. Like I just got back from tour, and we were recording an album. Um, but I did manage to record 4 songs with Juju. I don't know if you know Juju. Has he ever been on the show?
You're not, are
Juju
you talking about
Bachelor?
Phil? Are you talking about Phil?
No, not Phil.
No, you're talking about
Juju
from
Bachelor.
Froth.
Yeah,
From
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I know he's never been on, but I do want to catch up with him because I mean, Froth was such an amazing band.
But like, he runs the studio with Thomas, and a third partner. And so like Thomas was like, you need to, and we toured he played with Mr. Elevator, so I knew him, but like Juju uses Ableton, which I use, and so we were like he totally got it, and I'm really stoked at how everything came out. I have like some other recordings that I did myself that I have almost an album's worth of stuff because I recorded like maybe a half an album's worth of stuff with Juju, and then I have like a bunch of just weird like loop based stuff with like percussion samples that I take from records and some like a little bit of drumming that I recorded by myself, but it's like super lo-fi drumming because I don't have my gear isn't that nice.
You're not in the studio. What 22? That's
Yeah,
Thomas's thing. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And man, yeah, he got like it was like the perfect drum sound, and he totally got it and helped me with like when I kind of had I came to a few like I couldn't figure out where to take this part or that part. He's like, oh, maybe you should just like cut this and do this. It's like, oh man.
That's incredible, man. So maybe in the future we'll see some
Yeah,
stuff
my
out.
my goal is to finish. What is it? June 12th. Um, we're OCs are going to we're going to Mongolia on July 3rd. So I'm hoping to have everything finished before then.
Wow. All right, man. Awesome. Well, hey, if anybody could do it, Paul, it's you, and everybody knows that. Yeah, you're a workhorse.
We'll see. We'll see. Knock on wood.
Have some margaritas and then just get to work.
Yeah,
That's
get in the zone.
sure,
It's gonna be.
sure.
It's all gonna sound like Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah, hey, that's. Nothing bad about that, man.
Just no shirt, no shoes, no fucking problem.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I saw that there's a Margaritaville in New York in like Times Square area.
I bet
That's
that
the
would be a fun one.
that's the next place I'm staying when I go back to New York.
Dude, you get, yeah, they probably have like a resort right
Yeah,
there. They have one in Palm Springs, um, with like all these different pools and stuff. Um, one of the drunkest airplane experiences I've ever had was I, I had a few drinks at the Margaritaville at the Cancun airport before boarding the plane. And I'm honestly like, I'm surprised they even let me board the plane. I mean, this was like 15 or 16 years ago. I swear to God, I'm not a lush. Like I don't really drink
no, but there but
that
but
much.
there
But I
are
feel like,
certain times everybody gets a little bit,
yeah, man,
yeah, a little
it's,
bit.
it's like happy hour.
Also, it's like it's Margaritaville as well, so
It's
it's like
it's funny too because when I run into you in public, it's always at a bar. So I'm trying to keep the theme going.
yeah, I do appreciate it. This is vodka, by the way. I'm not
I
gonna
could,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's called a Judge Judy.
Mm-hmm.
When
Because
you put like, especially if you put vodka in a water bottle, and you disguise it as another like non-alcoholic drink, that's called the Judge Judy.
because she's a prolific drinker.
Yeah, and you know how she always has like a glass of water
Mm-hmm.
on her desk, and she's like, you can tell she's like getting lit by the end of every single show. She gets real,
Rowdy.
yeah, yeah, and short-tempered.
Yeah, she got a short fuse.
So yeah, I
But
know, I
anyways,
know you got a Judge Judy over there.
yeah, I gotta, I'm doing my part. It's the 200th. I gotta celebrate, of course. So you're in the Margaritaville airport bar.
Yeah, God,
What are you
and
drinking?
I think I had like three margaritas, three frozen margaritas, but the first two, it like takes a while for it to really like
Come
get into
on.
the bloodstream.
Mhm.
I think I was halfway into the third and I was like, Jesus Christ, oh my God. And there was like, some like 60-year-old lady who was even more wasted than me, who's just like, hey, what's your name? Like, I gotta go, bye.
I'm Jimmy Buffett. How are you? That's his. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. R.I.P.
yeah, yeah. Jimmy.
I never got to see him. There would always be like the concert event of the year in Pittsburgh. It was like whenever Jimmy Buffett rolled into town. I just wanted to go to see, like, I don't know if you've ever gone down a YouTube K-hole of like, just type in Jimmy Buffett parking lot.
I did not
Uh,
know that that was a scene.
Dude, oh my God. It's like for like dentists or like, you know, people who work in like a straight-laced 9 to 5 job. It's like the Grateful Dead for them,
Right,
you know?
right.
It's
Parrot
like, I
heads
mean, it's like
have jobs.
escapism. Yeah, it's total escapism, but like people fucking go hard. There's like story after story of people like not even being able to make it into the concert because they got too fucked up in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And like Hawaiian shirts and like fake lays and straw hats.
Right. There's a attire. There's a dress code. That's the one time that some men get to bust out their rain spooner shirts.
Yeah, yeah, dude.
And I love a good rain spooner shirt. Don't get me wrong. I'm big fan.
I'm a
Um,
Tommy Bahama
okay, yeah, no, and that's respectable.
myself.
Absolutely. Uh, so did you make it onto that plane, by the way,
Oh yeah,
from the? Okay.
yeah. And I remember it was only like a few hour flight to Pittsburgh,
So
and
it was when you were still out there.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, it was like maybe 15 years ago. Time flies, man.
Yeah.
I seriously like this. Obviously, not counting 2020 because of COVID, but like this year is it's like my 22nd straight year of just like touring. A bit like I tour at least half the year, and I have been since like 2002.
Wow. In 2002, were you, I mean, did you start touring when you were still in Pittsburgh or still in the Pennsylvania area?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you feel like over these past 20 plus years of touring that you've gotten better at touring, like just like learning the tricks of the trade
Oh
in a
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had the temperament for it, I've seen like in that band in particular, there's like one guy in the band who's just not cut out for the road and just a miserable dude. Uh,
And you're not talking about the OCs, right? You're talking about another
yeah,
band.
no, this is like
Okay.
a band I was in. John picks people to play music with, not just based on musical skill, but like hangability, I think I told you,
Hangability important.
like, if not the last time, but maybe the first time we spoke, how like when I when he was like thinking of asking me to join the band, he invited me over to record, and I did that was I thought that's all we were gonna do. I didn't realize it was like a secret audition, but we jammed and recorded, and then we would take a break and drink a few beers, and we jam and record some more and drink a few beers in his backyard and just kind of like shoot the shit. And that like the drinking beers and hanging out part was like just as important, if not more important, than like the music that we made.
Right,
But
right.
man, I have seen like so many good musicians lose their fucking mind on tour. Like because it's uncomfortable. You're,
Right. And it's time
you're
consuming and there's no real break from the
yeah,
people that you're on the road with. Yeah.
all of it. But like, you know, you can you can find a person's true character when they are even just like slightly uncomfortable. Um, but really, the main source of being uncomfortable on tour is just lack of sleep. Even to this day, like this tour that we just did, it was only like 2.5 weeks. And we're at the point now where it's like we're not gonna we're not gonna meet in the hotel lobby the next day after the show until noon unless we absolutely have to. But even then, it's like sometimes you just like get a shitty night's sleep because you play a show and you're all amped up on adrenaline, and it takes like 2 or 3 hours to come down. And next thing you know, it's like 4 a.m.
Right. And yeah, because you're not wrapping it up and there, I'm assuming there's encores and stuff and this and that. Yeah, I mean like that adrenaline's gonna be pumping
Well,
and
also, and like we don't have roadies, it's literally it's just us and a sound engineer, and that's it. We have like we in the past couple years we have incorporated a separate like merch duo, but they travel on their own and they do everything on their own. But we all like, we're it's a team, but they just do merch and we just do all the music. But it's like so we load our own gear in, we set it up ourselves, we do the sound checks, and like, you know, when it comes time to play the show, it's like there's no showbiz intro. It's not like the lights go down and the band comes out. It's like the band before us finishes, and then you see us like bringing our stuff on stage, setting it up, like tuning, like hitting drums. It's like it's actually pretty cool because even for like bigger shows when we do that, it still makes it feel like a house party.
right. Say, oh, there they are.
But
And you're
anyway,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
my
But then
point is,
you got I got stuff to do. I can't be.
yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is that after the show, we still have to pack our shit up, load the van. It's like it's strenuous. It's like somebody had a saying where being a touring musician is like half of it you're playing music and the other half you're like a moving company. You know?
Right. Yeah. Do you feel like the way that you view touring has changed over these past 20, was it, you said 22 years, right?
Yeah.
22 years. I mean, has your view of that changed over the time period?
No, I mean, I've from day one I was like this is all I want to do. Even when I wasn't making any money or barely making any money. I was like, this still beats like any day job you could possibly have. The only thing that's changed is I've just gotten better at it, you know, like, and especially now that I'm older, I know that I have to, like, even though we meet at noon, I have to wake up at 10 because I want to go to the gym, or like, if there isn't a gym, I bring like resistance bands, you know, like I need to, like, stretching and exercising is like, and drinking water, like, you'll be totally fine if you do those things and not obviously like not drink too much and not be hungover because then you start eating shitty food, you know, it's like it's a vicious cycle.
You'll spiral,
Yeah.
right? Um, do you feel a difference between the first show of a tour and the last show of a tour? Is there a difference for you in
Oh
like
my
the way
God,
that
yeah.
you're playing? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for me, like the main thing is just my body being able to handle it. Like those first few shows, it's like my fucking neck is sore, every muscle in my body is sore, and by the third show, I'm like, all right. I'm like, yeah, I got this. But also, we get like really tight too. You know, we don't. We only practice for maybe like 2 days before a tour. We don't put in like long rehearsals, and so we just end up getting like really tight by like the third show, I would say.
Right, right.
I mean, like the very first show I ever played with these guys, we had been practicing, you know, because I had to learn like something like 20 or 30 songs. Um, so we had been practicing for like months. I think it was, I started practicing with them around Thanksgiving, and the show was in January. Um, and so like, you know, like I remember at first it was just me, John, and Tim because Dan was in New York, but then Tim had to go. Tim had like a trip planned, so then it was me, Dan, and John. Um, and then like the whole, you know, we were just a four piece at the time.
Yeah,
Um, and so like when it came time for the show, everything was like twice as fast and twice as loud as it had been in practice, and I was just like, holy shit, you know. But it was still like really fun. I was still like going 100%. And I remember getting back to my apartment that night, and like I said, every muscle in my body was like completely sore, and I was like, fuck, I don't know if I can play like this anymore. Like night after night, I got to go on tour and feel like this. And then the next night, it was like totally easy because of, oh, it's just conditioning. You
right.
know, like I just haven't played like this in a while.
Was there a song in particular that was put on your plate that you're like, this is a fucking tough one?
At the time, I don't remember which songs at the time were like the really physical ones, but I know now, like for both Dan and myself, whenever we play animated violence, like like sometimes you'll look over and Dan will literally just be like his head on his snare. That one's a that's a marathon. But
Yeah.
we usually like after a song like that, we'll usually play like a slower one, just literally like catch our breath.
Right, right. Like web or something like that, something less.
That one actually goes pretty hard too. I would say like
My apologies. I didn't mean to offend you.
yeah,
I feel like
dude, come
Dan has,
on.
yeah, I know. I'm sorry, dude. 200 and you think I know the ropes around here, but I'm just getting started. I think Dan talked about that as well. There'll be like a more mellow one after something like animated
Yeah,
violence or ne as I learned now, web.
yeah. Web is like because it's just very syncopated.
Hmm.
It's syncopated, but we like you know usually a syncopated beat you're like hanging back, but because it's this band, it's like syncopated, but like kind of playing as hard as you possibly can. Um, yeah, what's like Sticky Hulks is always like, okay, we're catching our breath, but also like Toe Cutters, as much as it's like really loud and people always go crazy when we play that song. For me and Dan, it's like, all right, I can like,
They chill out for a minute. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, those are all great songs that are I mean what seems like staples of the sets. These these important
it,
songs.
yeah,
I'm not saying that the other ones aren't important, but like those like fan favorites it seems like.
yeah,
Did you
yeah,
have a favorite song before entering the band? You're like, I really like that song for whatever reason.
yeah. I remember, I always liked The Dream, and so like the first time I got to play it, it was like I was pumped. And then when we did those OCS shows with Bridget, that was really cool because that um what was fuck what was it called? What's the really mellow one um where it's just like really minimal percussion. John,
The Hounds of Foggy Notion,
yes,
that one. Okay.
yeah, that was like the first thing I heard
Oh wow.
by
Okay.
the OCs, and I was really into that. And so when we got to play a few of those songs, I was pretty pumped.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, it's a way different kind of feeling or tone, if you will,
Yeah,
energy.
yeah,
And I think Nick Murray was playing it on
yeah.
drums at that time, right?
Yeah, they did a couple more shows. I think because John and Bridget played as a duo at some benefit, and so they did a couple shows at Permanent
Hmm.
House, and I think Nick sat in with them, which is cool.
Very cool.
That was out
Very
of
cool.
town. I wish I could have made that.
Yeah, shout out to Nick too. Amazing drummer. I know
Has he been on?
no, I haven't had him on yet. No, but I always admired his
I'll text
playing,
him.
and it seems like for a while, like every time I like look into an album, I go, oh, okay, Nick's on this, Nick's on this, Nick's on
Yeah,
this.
I mean
Yeah,
he's the man. He's like the go-to guy in LA for a reason.
yeah, fantastic percussionist, definitely. Now going back to your experience with you mentioned seeing Mr. Elevator. Was that like way before Thomas was in the picture, or you were even in the OCs?
No, that was why we were. So he was doing double duty. This was only like maybe 4 years ago.
So post Margaritaville, Cancun,
Yeah.
but in
Okay,
between
so,
then and
I mean, the
now.
vibe was still there. It's always going to be there. But
Sure.
yeah, this is like, it was around the time the last Mr. Elevator record came out. So when was that? Like 2021, maybe? Maybe it was like the first tour after COVID.
Hmm.
But they did like the whole tour, you know? It's like Juju and fucking Johnny Cosmo. Do you know about Johnny Cosmo?
Yeah, and he's been on, and shout out to Johnny. Please go check out
Has he?
that
Fuck
yeah, that interview. He's a great guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Thomas was doing opening sets, Mr. Elevator, and then like pulling his keyboard back and like playing a whole set with OCs.
Very cool.
I feel like I saw them a long time ago at like I think South by Southwest, but when they were called Mr. Elevator in the Brain Hotel,
Yeah.
which is like,
Pre just Mr.
and
Elevator. Yeah.
yeah, and again, it's hard to everything seem like everything between like 5 and 15 years. All it's hard to decipher which years are which.
Yeah. But I mean, the point is, it happened at some point in between. You're given a grace period.
Yeah, yeah, it happened. I know that.
It did happen, and you remember some of it. That's the point that we're trying to make here.
Yeah.
Going back to expensive shit, was that named after? I don't know if I asked you this, and if I did, I apologize. But we're gonna go through it again if we did. Double backing on the 200th here. Um, Was Expensive Shit, was that named after that Fella Kuti record?
Partly, yeah. It was also just like I need a name, and I was looking at the setup. I was like, look at all this expensive shit.
It's a good name. Did Fella Kuti have an effect on you when you started playing drums? Is that somebody that
Absolutely.
you look towards? Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, not when I started out. I didn't discover his music until I was in college. Um, so that was probably like maybe like 4 years after I started playing, 4 or 5 years. But it was just like one of those. It was like the first time I heard Led Zeppelin or James Brown or like or the Stooges, or Suicide. It was like or Can, it was just instant like, what the fuck is this? I need to know what this is right now. Like it was, I think I was at a party and I like walked around and I like had to find the host of the party because they were just playing a tape.
Hmm.
Um, and they're like, oh yeah, it was Zombie, Fela Kuti Zombie, and I was like,
Tremendous
yeah, and
song.
I was like, okay, I have to find this album and like everything he's ever fucking recorded. I need as much of this as I possibly can get. And
Yeah.
like all those bands I mentioned before, it was the same feeling, or like Black Sabbath too. Like just certain music where I knew I'd be listening to this for like the rest of my life, and like taking inspiration from it.
Yeah. Real quick on that song Zombie. I don't know if I mean you know what touch tunes are, right? That it's like the modern jukebox at like bars and
Yes,
shit.
yeah, that's a good one to play because it's really long.
Yes, I'll play Zombie as many times as I can. Like I'll put it on for like 3 times, and because people think the song's over, right?
Mhm.
And it starts back up again, and like, if is it playing again? And one time I was like, oh, this is really funny, and this guy like turns around, he's like, is that you putting on Zombie? I was like, yeah, I don't know who puts that on. It's a great song though.
I don't know,
And
cool song, yeah. You know what's a good one to play? I don't know if those touch tune jukeboxes still do this. There was one in Pittsburgh that would always it would do volume correction. So if there was a song that was mastered a little quieter, it would kind of like bring up the volume, or if there was a song that was mastered really loud, it bring down the volume. But if there's ever a jukebox like that, play Frankie Teardrop by Suicide because
mhm.
it's like really, really quiet and really eerie. And then when it gets to the screams, it's like 10 times louder than the song. And so like the volume will be really high up and it'll like you'll get everybody in the place to,
Good. All right, cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna add that to the queue. I
Mhm.
haven't put on Zombie in a while, but I do love that song just because it's so long and people do think that I mean, it's a great song
That's
and
the
people.
thing. It's like I feel like people probably didn't get annoyed with it because it's a pretty hypnotic groove.
Mhm.
It's like you could listen to it for like an hour and not get sick of it.
I don't get sick of it, but I feel like other people do when
Well,
I put it
fuck
on.
him, man.
That's
Fucking.
that's what I'm saying.
I have two of the like the vinyl box sets, and then there's a guy from Nigeria who like messaged me on Discogs, because I had like a bunch of like African stuff in my want list, and so like he started sending me all kinds of shit, but I had to because it's like I don't know what it may. I think maybe there's just a lot of scammers from based out in Nigeria, but like, you know, he doesn't use Venmo or PayPal, and so I was trying to send him a wire via like one of those Money Mart type places, or like what's another like.
I guess Schools First, I think, does it as well.
Yeah,
Or
and
like
I
one
kept
of those kind
trying
of places.
like I went from like place to place. like Western Union, you know. They're like, oh yeah, no, no, we're not. You can't send this money to Nigeria. So luckily, there was like a guy, like a DJ from Miami, who like he put me in touch with, and so I would like. This all seems really shady, but like I would send him money, and then he would. He it turned out to be a really good guy, so he would be like the middleman. But anyway, yeah, this guy started sending me all these like OG Vela pressings and like William Onyebar, and then all this other stuff too, like Sir Victor Huefo, and all this other kind of more obscure stuff. But it's really cool because it's just like, this like original vinyl with like the shitty plastic inner sleeves and like, and it's funny because the vinyl itself isn't really that good, but it's just really cool to have like some OG
Right, right.
copies. And then and then he hit me up randomly and he tried to sell me a snake, like a white snake.
And not a White Snake album. You're talking about a
Yeah,
white.
no, like an actual white snake. And I was like, no, man, I fucking hate snakes. Um,
I mean, I see
he's
where he's
like, come
coming
on,
from.
bro,
Like,
it's like
yeah,
this is worth a lot of money. I was like, I am not interested at all.
I see where he's coming from on his idea though of like, well, this guy's into music. You'll probably want a White Snake.
I do look like a guy who would be into white snakes, you know?
Has there been a song or album that you found even like earlier than finding Fela Kuti's songs, for instance, that like just really jumped out at you?
Yeah, I mean that goes back to just going through my dad's record collection. He was like a big um, singles guy, so he had like drawers and drawers full of 45s, and he had like um, I don't want to say every, but he had a shit ton of like James Brown 45s, which are always really cool because it'd be part one on one side, and then like you flip it over, and that's when it's kind of more like jammed and stretched out, and like, you know. So he had a bunch of those, and he had Led Zeppelin 2, which is like those James Brown 45s and Led Zeppelin 2 in particular were like when I taught myself how to play drums. So I didn't take lessons. I had like kind of a cheapo drum set, but I would like take a record player downstairs and put on headphones and like literally like put on like a 45 or like that Zeppelin 2 album and just like play along to it.
Learning by the turntable, sure.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, those records definitely like the first two Black Sabbath albums, like when I was a kid, those are the ones that it was just like it was just the perfect music for me, just um it was like heavy, but it had like swing to it, and like the guitars just sounded like I didn't realize it at the time, and now that I've played music for a long time and I understand how important tone is, like not just like guitar tone, but even just drum tones. It's like I can see why it's still like why it hit me so hard when I was a kid, and why it still is like, oh, this is like the perfect sound, Especially like the first Black Sabbath album, like those drums just sound so fucking good, but like the guitar tones and the bass, it's like fucking perfect.
Yeah. Is there a song or album that you were really into to the point that you just played it over and over and over again, and now you're just kind of sick of it? Like you don't need to hear it again?
Yeah, when I was in high school, like my friend circle, everybody's really into Fish, and like I liked, and I still like the Grateful Dead to a point, like people, that could be a whole other hour discussion because I really do love the Grateful Dead, but like I've realized that I hate most 80s Grateful Dead. I liked how Fish was like jammy, and I liked how Um, there was like LSD culture built around it. You know, like you go to their shows, you can most likely score like a 10 strip of acid, and like everybody around you is tripping, and it was, you know, it was like I like that aspect of it, and then, but yeah, once I kind of, especially once I started discovering like the Cramps or the Stooges, it really made that shit sound really trite, and it made it. I was like, oh yeah, they don't rock. This isn't like when they try to rock, it's fucking terrible. They had because they have like the sonic aesthetic of like a wedding band, you know. And have you ever seen like a
I
wedding
see what
band
you're
like really
saying.
try to rock? It's like, no, no. That was cool when you did that like pretty ballad or like, you know, your guitarist has some chops, but no. Um, and so like, you know, between like 94 and 98, I saw them maybe like 25 times and then I just stopped. And then a few years ago, actually, no, this was like last year. They were playing in LA and I had a bunch of buddies from high school go to see them at the Hollywood Bowl. And I was like, all right, I'll go. I'll check it out. And I was like, it was like one of the most frustrating concert experiences I've had because I was like, okay, this part is legitimately cool. Like they're doing some really interesting spacey stuff. And then they would just like go into this really dopey funk jam or some like corny like country, you know, like ding, 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 like, and there it is. No, but then they would like space out and do something cool again, and then the lights are always in sync with their music, and I thought that was cool. And so be like, yeah, no, yeah, no, no. So it was like totally. The hangout was fun though, like before the show.
Hang, yeah. Um, have you kept in touch with these people that you, I mean, it seems like you did, like you went to that bachelor party, whenever that was in
Yeah,
Colorado and
yeah,
stuff.
they're all the same crew of friends actually. We have like a text thread. Um, it's like almost every day. Like my buddy Brian, it's his birthday today actually, so you know.
Shout out to Brian.
Yeah, Schwabi. But when OC's played at Red Rocks,
Yeah.
so this text thread, it's like me, let's see, me, Chris, Joe, Brian, Keith. So there's like four, yeah, there's four other guys, and three of the four guys flew out to Red Rocks. Actually, one of them lives in Colorado, but the other two flew out because they're like, "Holy shit, you're playing at Red Rocks! I have to come." And it's
Right.
so cool 'cause I got to like bring them backstage and like it was seriously like because you know we would listen to Grateful Dead bootlegs and get really stoned. That was always like, wow, Red Rocks. This place seems like the Shangri-La of music venues, you know. And so I was really touched that they flew out and we had this like mini like high school buddy reunion,
Yeah,
you know.
that's amazing. What was that like to play that, man? I mean,
It was
how
cool.
did
I
it feel
mean
to be on the stage and
that
had you been there before
yeah.
to see somebody?
I've never saw I've only been there twice and both times I played because OC's actually played there once before opening for Portugal the Man.
Okay.
Um, and fuck, what year was that? It was right. It was like right before Thomas joined. That was like whatever year that was. It was this. He joined. He did like the fall tour, and then he's been in the band ever since. But it was like the summer before that. Enrique was there actually, and Enrique played percussion because he was like, I just want to go to Red Rocks. But yeah, so the second time was our own show, and yeah, I mean, what can I say? It was like pretty magical because we did a different set than we normally do, like a bunch of songs that we've never played before or since, you know, because we knew it would be because we played there before. There were like a lot of people sitting down. In fact, John was like, yeah, the whole time, like the first time we played, he's like, the whole time we were playing, I was just out of the corner of my eye, I could just see this lady in like in my direct field of vision, just like eating nachos the whole time. You know, it's like, all right, we're gonna do like a different set because I'm sure like a lot of people would just be kind of sitting down or just chilling and not like crowd surfing and
Just kind
moshing.
of eat. I mean, you can't eat nachos and crowd surf. It's just two different things.
See, now that you've said that, I feel like there's gonna be one motherfucker on this next tour who does that.
Okay, well, let me just say this: take it upon yourself to get
Yeah,
nachos from a
nacho
venue,
challenge.
the Nacho Challenge, and be sure to have somebody film it and tag me and Paul in the
Yeah,
thing so we know that you're legit.
and keep this shit off the stage,
Oh yeah,
like invisible barrier, stage crowd, like keep it
yes,
all in
please,
there.
please do not and don't like get. I make sure it's in one of those boats or tubs or whatever, so you're not
Yeah,
dripping on anybody else. But get somebody to film you and yeah,
yeah.
the
Wear
not
one of
Nacho
those like
Challenge.
lobster bibs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. One of those two. And it can't be at Red Rocks.
No rules. Actually,
Okay.
no. We've established a couple rules, but beyond that, no rules.
Beyond that, yeah.
Yeah,
Third rule is have fun, but the other two are
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
pretty
Exactly.
cemented.
Mhm.
Have you gotten to the point that when you go see a show now that you're kind of just in the back, kind of not eating nachos, but kind of with that vibe of like, let me just take it in and not kind
Yeah,
of be a part
man.
of it?
I'm not in the pit. Um, I'm like whether it's at like a concert or if there's like a dance club, I'm in the back, just like I'm right here, you
Mind in
know?
your own. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm in the like I'm taking it all in.
right. Uh, Recently I went to go see Color Green, and shout out to Color Green. And oh, I
But
can't remember who the other band was, but I turn around at one point and I just kind of see in my peripheral. I go, "Oh, there's Tim," and then I turned around fully, and it was Dan. I was like, "Man,
yeah.
that's wow."
Well,
You know,
we're all buds. Was it at Zebulon?
it was at Permanent Records.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna say if you ever see a show at Zebulon, um, Dan actually rents out a tiny apartment in the Zebulon basement.
really?
Just kidding. You would think so, though.
The
Good
first
band.
time that we I think that the first time that we actually talked face to face was at the Cha Cha Lounge. I think that was the first
Oh
time.
yeah, when Nick and I were DJing.
Yeah. Shout out to Nick.
Actually, he and I are DJing at the Cha Cha 2 Saturdays from now on the 22nd.
I think that'll have already happened by the time this comes out. So how did it go?
People were doing unmentionable things in the men's bathroom.
Good things. Good
Yeah,
things. Like the
good,
Nacho Challenge
really
and
good
stuff.
things. I just don't want to mention
Right. Yeah.
those kind of things.
Is that like a place that you like to go when you come to town?
You know, it's funny. The only time I really go there is like late night if I'm out and about or if I'm DJing. I never have been there like just hanging out, having like a casual, you know, like couple light cocktails or whatever. It's like, all right, we're fucked up. Oh yeah, all right, let's go to Cha Cha.
When I saw you there, that was the first time I'd ever been there because I was giving my buddies a ride to, I want to say Xavier Wolf at some venue down there, and I said, "Oh yeah, Nick and Paul are DJing at the
I
Cha Cha.
mean,
It's not too far away."
I love that place. It's got like almost tiki vibes, but it's like kind of gnarly too, and like kind of gritty and kind of seedy, and a lot of
It's a good duality in that place. I quite
yeah,
liked it. Yeah, and there was some good songs. There was no touch tunes in there, so I couldn't play Zombie. But
dude. You know what? I think maybe I'll just play Zombie over and over and over again. It's Nick's night, so And he's such a nice guy that I bet he wouldn't even, he would be like, "Oh, you're playing this song again, huh?" Like, "Fourth time, buddy." "Oh, all right, I guess. Cool, cool."
Do you feel like some songs in albums have a certain amount of plays in them before they just kind of, it's like, all right, I've heard it enough?
Um, I think I do think that like going out and being at, especially like when you play shows and there's like a DJ night afterwards, there are certain songs I would be totally fine with never hearing again. You know, like I don't need to hear Teenage Kicks ever again. I don't need to hear like Love Will Tear Us Apart or like, you know, so, and there are the really obvious songs um, like Don't Stop Believin' or like Sweet Caroline, you know, but like these are like songs that are considered cool that like, you know, every like indie sleaze bullshit DJ night you'll hear at some point. It's like those are the types of songs I just don't need to hear ever again. And
Yeah.
even by bands that I like, you know, um, like fuck, what's the? There's like two Cramps songs in particular.
Like
Like,
Garbage Man, perhaps, or something like
no,
that.
that's a fucking, that one's a jam,
I did not mean to offend you. Just
dude. All right, this is
what
I'm
if,
fucking done here.
what about what about Goo Goo Muck? Is that
Yeah, Goo
one?
Muck is one. What's the other? I'm totally spaced. There's another one that it's like, all right. Oh, New Kind of Kick. Great song, great band. It's like we can pick another one. They're so good and they have so many gems. And
Hmm.
like, have you ever heard the like early demos? You know, they're like for whatever reason the drums just sound so like so much more pumping. I'll send you
Yeah. Please, yeah, please do, Paul.
when I mentioned them earlier, they were they were one of the bands that kind of it made me like the Cramps and the Stooges and Velvet Underground too. I think they made me look at rock and roll in a totally different way, you know? Because it was like, you know, Zeppelin, who were like one of my favorite bands, they're like such virtuosos. And Sabbath too, to an extent. But like, you know, the Cramps, it was like, this shit rocks just as hard. And like the drummer is barely like playing a beat, you know, like everything's so simple, but I don't, something about it is like, this rocks just as hard, if not harder, than like, you know, some of my favorite Zeppelin or Sabbath jams, or like, you know, almost all of classic rock radio, you know.
Right.
And same thing with the Stooges. It just like cuts through all the bullshit, and it's it's like the first wave of rock and roll. That's what it's all about. You know, like if you listen to like Little Richard, you know that song "Keep a Knockin'."
I believe I'll say yes.
Dude, it's like it's it's punker than punk. It's like the drums. You know, this guy Earl Palmer playing the drums. They're just it's like it's like the Damned, like Rat Scabies type drums, where he's just like hitting everything, and then Little Richard is just like scream singing on top, and it's so aggressive, and it must have scared the shit out of people when that came out, and it's just like white hot rock and roll music, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like screaming so hard that it's like distorting the microphone, you know? It's like yeah. So I don't know, like Cramps and the Stooges just it's like that's like the heart of like good rock and roll music. And I
Right.
feel like they are like a total shortcut to that, you know?
Right. are there some albums that are like perfect in your eyes, like Funhouse, for instance, or something like that?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I'm not giving that as an answer, but like, are there some like 10 out of 10? Every song on here is great. There's no skippable tracks.
yeah. God, so many. I mean, like first Suicide record, um, like I feel like pretty much every Sabbath record with Ozzy, um, you know, Three Stooges records, Public Enemy, Takes an Ace to Millions to Hold Us Back, De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising, um, like Wu Tang, Enter the 36 Chambers, fucking. There's like 3 different Tribe Called Quest. So many. Um, I should make a list. Like I
Please
and
do.
those are just off the top of my head, but like
Hey, I mean those are
God,
some pretty good. I do appreciate it, Paul. You named more than I was expecting. You gave me a little extra there, and I do appreciate
I
it.
feel like it's not enough because I really, you know, to me those are like perfect, 10 out of 10 albums. Um, Not like 9.6, 9.8, whatever bullshit, like 10 out of 10. And there are so many that I'm like, oh, fucking, just last week we were listening to Kinks Village Green Preservation Society. Perfect album, like every single song.
Yeah, the Kinks are amazing. Yeah.
And
Um,
yeah, that's the thing. It was like, well, okay, they have so many great albums, but for I don't know. And I do think that album gets like it does get a lot of hype, but I think it's I think it's deserving.
Going back to these kind of 9.6, 9.7 albums that they're like almost perfect, but they're not. Is there any that come to mind that like that's close to a 10?
I think I would say all the Credence albums are like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have like one or two that are like I could that I usually skip, and then the rest I'm like, oh, this is some of my favorite shit ever. Um, what else? What would you like? What give me something to work with? Because I know you could. I'm sure you could think of an album that will like
Jog your
drop.
memory.
Yeah.
An almost perfect album, uh, it for me is Blood on the Tracks, Bob Dylan's.
Hmm.
It's like it's not a perfect album for me, and that might be a real, knife in the gut for some people, but like that's,
Wasn't that the album that he purposely? Oh no, I'm thinking of Self Portrait, where he like purposely put out an album that he knew wasn't going to be perfect.
oh, was that the story behind that album?
I think so, yeah. Where he had like enough tracks recorded at the time to make it like a really good album, and he's like, no, I want to put like I think he just put like a few kind of half-assed demos on it instead, like obvious filler.
So you got a lot in your list of like perfect albums. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and I feel like I just listed like either classic rock or like hip hop, and I can't
But
I'm like drawing a
even to
blank.
have any like on your mind of like a perfect album to
Oh
name a
yeah.
few is incredible. I do appreciate it, Paul.
Oh, the
One
first Devo album I feel like is a 10.
the first what album?
Devo,
Evo. Okay.
first Devo
Oh,
album.
Devo. I was like Evo.
Yeah.
I don't know, but Devo I do know. Okay. Yeah.
Um, Fuck. What is a good? Yeah, what's like a good almost perfect? That's a really, really good question.
I appreciate it.
Fuck. You stumped me with that one.
Uh and of course this is gonna come to us later on when we hear it. Like, oh, that's almost a good one right there.
Yeah, because the only ones that I like the ones that stand out to me, and the ones that I can think of right off the top of my head are the ones that I'm always like, make a point in my mind like this is a perfect 10 out of 10 album. Every song is great.
But it's the almost perfect ones that
Yeah,
throw you off.
I'm trying to think of the ones where I like skip a song or two, where
Yeah,
other song I'm like, oh, this is fucking. That's a really, really good question.
I appreciate it, Paul. You know, I
You
gotta
should
say,
quit. You know what? That you're never gonna top that question. You should just quit right here.
that's it. Good night, everybody. When you come back from touring and you get home and everything, what is on your mind? I mean, are you kind of trying to distance yourself from music or
No, I've as soon as I got home, I started like I said, I'm trying to finish this expensive shit album before we leave for Mongolia. So basically, in the next 3 weeks, I want to like I've been in like editing mode and like because I want to send it off to I'm gonna just do like a limited pressing, just put it out myself. Um, so I'm like doing all this editing, and then I have an idea for art, and I'm just gonna like silk screen covers myself. Um, but so yeah, I'm in like basically like that zone, and also just doing like house and yard maintenance. You know,
yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because last time you were on here, there was a lot of preparation going on in the
yeah,
house.
yeah. It's still I'm like in the home stretch. There was actually a fire in like an empty lot behind my house
Ooh.
while I was gone, and it like I can't. I on it. It burned up a bunch of Joshua trees. I mean, it was like a really big fire, and luckily it didn't touch my house. But it's still like I was walking around today, and it was just like all these charred Joshua trees throughout my yard, and in like the big empty plot of land next to my house, which is a total bummer. And then my fucking neighbor, like I had a fire before I left, and so apparently she was telling the rest the people on my street that it was probably my fault. And I was like, I haven't been there in 2 weeks. Give me a fucking. So I like
Did your
I
neighbor
had
or
it out
one of
with her
your
today.
Oh, good. As yeah, as she demanded, that's what she was asking for. She wanted an altercation, and
Yeah,
you said, "Will do."
yeah, homie. Yeah,
Did one of your neighbors reach out to you about this fire when you were on the road, or did you learn about it when you came back?
yeah. Well, I mean, my girlfriend was the one who told me about it, and then but like my neighbor told her, but I didn't know if my house had burned down. You know, it was like I had just kind of woken up, and we were like, I can't remember where we were driving to, but it was like, wait, what? You know? She's like, I'm gonna go there and check it out. Um, and yeah, it was fine. The house is fine, but yeah, it was like kind of clean. So yeah, I got home 2 days ago, and so like for the past 2 days, I'm like kind of cleaning up and like assessing, and yeah, it was a bummer, man. I mean, those trees are so old and so majestic, and just to see like a few of them just like totally charred,
Yeah,
was it was a bummer.
I'm sorry to hear that, man, but I'm glad the house is still standing.
Yeah,
That's a plus side to that. Um,
but that's basically when I get back from tour. That's like that's all I do is like work on and usually like back and forth. Like I work on music for a few hours until I hit a wall, and then I'm like, I'm gonna go do some gardening, and then like smoke some weed, do some gardening, listen to music, and then like get some ideas, and then come back and like, you know.
do you feel like the music that you listen to during these points of working on your own music, not while working on your own music, but in these kind of interim times, if you will, does that make have an effect on the music that you go on to make? Like after listening to an album, you go, I can,
Totally,
yeah,
totally, yeah. I'm for whatever reason when I'm out here, I listen, especially like when I'm working in the yard. I listen to like a lot of just noise music, um, like yesterday I was just listening to Merzbow and like I don't know, for whatever reason it like freeform noise music out here just makes a lot of sense. And when I lived in LA, I was living in East Hollywood and it was like pretty noisy and chaotic. There'd be like helicopters flying all over the place and like police sirens and just like general chaos because I lived right on Hollywood Boulevard. Um, and I found myself listening to like a lot of mellow music and something about like just the vastness of everything and like how peaceful it is. I feel like I like to fill up that space with like just like like just like harsh soundscapes. It just I don't know why. It makes sense. Even when I'm driving around, I'm like driving through these hills and stuff. A lot of times it's like, what do you want? A lot of times it's like, whoa, um, yeah, like noisy, aggressive music.
Right. Yeah, it does seem like, I mean, certain places have like just the feeling of you got to listen to this certain music. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and it's funny because like going out when actually do go out around here, it's like a lot of music is like this kind of like whatever country-ish kind of Gram Parsons-y type shit. Where I'm like, you know, I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. I've like I've lived out here in Joshua Tree for like 5 years now, and I don't hate Graham Parsons, but I think I can honestly say he's just okay. Like
Not even albums of a 9 point something range, lower than
no,
that. All right.
I like when it comes to like cosmic cowboy music, whatever. Like Doug Somm, Sir Douglas Quintet, fucking kicks his ass up and down the.
I don't even know what that is, but
You never
I'll be
listened to
checking
Doug?
it
Oh
out.
man, dude, you're in for a treat. He's the Texas guy, and he had it's kind of like integrated band. It was like kind of Tex Mex. He had like Mexican Americans playing like maracas and like farfisa organ, and it was like
Oh,
very like um, it was like Tex-Mex border rock and roll. And Doug Somm's voice is like, dude, he can fucking his voice is so it's like that perfect like kind of smoky country like world weary voice. Whereas like Graham Parsons is just a fucking like trust fund rich kid. He could write a good song, but like Doug Somm's the real deal.
he's a real deal. All right.
Yeah, when it comes to like like psychedelic cowboy rock music.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, I do appreciate you opening my mind here, Paul. I'll definitely check them out for sure. Thank you. Have you felt that living in the desert, away from that busyness of, you said East Hollywood,
Yeah,
of like East Hollywood in your time in New York and all these things, do you feel like that has like given you like a subliminal, like once you're home, like you're kind of away from everything and you're away from the busyness of like touring or doing a
totally,
residency of shows and stuff?
totally. It gives my ears a rest. It like I sleep really well. You know, I don't know if you ever been out here?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like camping. I like once the sun goes down by like 9:30, I'm like, I guess I'm going to sleep. And then like when the sun comes up, I'm like, all right.
it's up and Adam time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like sleep really well. I like get some nice peace and quiet, and I become really productive. Like, I'm 46 years old. I'm like, I don't need to be going out all that much, but there are things to do. Like there's Pappy and Harriet's. There's like
The
there are
Red
things to
Dog.
do. Yeah, exactly. There are like cool things to do because like you do have to keep your mind stimulated. Like, I understand why people live in New York and like go out every single night because it is constant stimuli. And if you're an artist, it is really important to, um, you know, to like go to museums, go to art openings, go to as many shows as you can. It's like constant stimuli, constant inspiration. Um, but I feel like I get enough of that from touring, and you know, it's for me. This is part, and I go to LA often enough for music anyway. So like, I still like, it's two
It's
hours
still
away.
within reaching
Totally,
distance.
yeah,
Right. That's awesome, man. I'm glad that you kind of get to experience both these things, that you could be with it if you want to, but kind of step away from it if needed.
yeah. It's nice.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's nice to like because when I lived in New York and when I lived in East Hollywood, like you couldn't escape it, unless you like got in your car and drove a few hours. So for me, it's like if I want the noise and I want the stimuli, it's like,
It's
I,
there for the taking.
yeah,
Now, what about Pittsburgh? Is that kind of like a mixture of the two in a
kind
sense?
of, yeah. Actually, I would say so. I mean, it is like one of the major cities in America. Um, it's not overwhelmingly big. You could drive like 15, 20 minutes and be out in like the sticks.
Yeah.
But like when you're in the city, in different parts of the city, yeah, there's still like a lot of constant commotion, and you know, you're very much in a city.
Right. There's that vibe to it.
Yeah. Although there were parts of like even in the city of Pittsburgh, there were like little pockets of like weird. There'd be like where I lived. It was kind of on the border of this Polish hill in North Oakland, and I lived like it was on the side of a hill because Pittsburgh has a lot of hills, and there was like at the end of I lived on a cul-de-sac. It was like a really long road and then ended in kind of a cul-de-sac, and there was like just this clearing for like this tiny little stretch of woods, and like at the base of the hill there were train tracks, and so there weren't like you basically people like all these crust punks kind of figured out like, oh, this is like kind of a cool place to hang out, and there was like a clearing where you could have a fire pit, and somebody even built a bar, so like it ended up being a place where people would hang out, and they would bring like tiki torches, and like it was kind of the shit, dude. And it seriously felt like you're in backwoods Kentucky, and it was like it's just this tiny little like I would guess maybe like a half acre's worth of land, but it was and because it was down the hill, it like you couldn't really hear people hooping and hollering from like up where the houses were. It was like and like the cops never came. It was perfect.
Was that also a hangout spot for you at the time? Did you also
Oh yeah,
partake? Okay.
yeah. Like in the summertime, I wouldn't go down there as much because like it would for one, like Pittsburgh in the summertime is just it just kind of sucks, especially like just the humidity. And if you're in the woods, like the mosquitoes are kind of overwhelming. But like springtime and autumn is so nice. Like we would seriously just have like a bonfire, like sit around. It felt like high school, just like bringing like a six pack and like have like sipping beers around a fire, like all these people would come up like, hey, oh, hey, what's up? And then the little bar in between two trees that somebody, I think they called, it was named Squirrelies. like somebody had built like I think out of like wood pallets, you know. It's
Yeah.
like it's it's really cool.
And
And they have
there's always
two.
some sort of weird wood thing around those
Mhm,
kind of areas. Sure.
mhm.
Of course.
Yeah, I messed up.
Well, maybe you'll make your own squirrelies, perhaps. It'll make a return.
Yeah, I could make a squirrelies out here. Dude, I'm stuck.
We'll see.
Like OCs are playing in Pittsburgh this fall, and for the first time since I've been in the band, so that'll be cool. I'm stoked.
That'll be a nice return.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's at this place that used to be Moose Lodge, and now I guess they turned it into like a legit venue.
Do you remember going to see shows there? Like when you were living there?
Every now and then they would have shows. Um, like you could rent the place out. There was also a bar in the basement. And the bartender sold drugs, so it'd be like a place where people go to. Like you'd be like, "Oh, I know someone who knows someone who's a member. All right, yeah, you come in."
Oh yeah, it's
But
like a
like,
long lineage of like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, my stepdad's dad.
yeah, you're like, all right, what do you want? But yeah, the upstairs, it kind of reminds me of the Beachland Ballroom in Cleveland, just like you know, wood floors, like it was a moose lodge. It was like it's like an old man hangout type vibe.
Sure.
So I feel like that'll be the perfect place to play. Like, because John hasn't been in Pittsburgh in years. I think his last show there was like really bad, so he kind of avoided it for a long time. And like, I think things have changed a lot since even since I moved, which was 2000. When was that? 2014. And
Which is
yeah,
not really doesn't feel that long ago, but yeah, it
no,
could
exactly. Yeah,
be.
it was 10 years ago, which is like crazy because like I said, anything beyond 5 years, between 5 years and 15 years, I'm like, it all just feels the same.
Goes into the ether. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this show, it's sold out in like 2 weeks. And they
Wow.
announced it's in October, but they announced it last November. But it sold out in like 2 weeks.
That's awesome. It seems like when musicians go to Pennsylvania, it's always Philly and it's not Pittsburgh, even though Pittsburgh is on the map and it's like a
Yeah.
large city. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's kind of out of the way, like if you're taking like if you're going through Cleveland, if you're coming from the west, usually you're on the 90, so you're like go through Cleveland, which like if you stay east on the 90, you go through like Buffalo and Rochester, Syracuse, and then or you go like underneath Pittsburgh and you go through like I guess Maryland and then into like Baltimore or whatever and then up through New York. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of like make a point to go to Pittsburgh. It's not like on the way. So it always got skipped over, but I think it's different now because it Google opened up a branch like right around the time I left, and then all these other tech companies followed suit. So there's just like this whole new crop of like younger people who like going to shows and like going to nice restaurants, and it's like kind of not to the extent of San Francisco or like Austin, thankfully, just enough that it's like has like a thriving
Younger community.
culture. Yeah, there's like a lot of shit to do, which was kind of few and far between in like the almost 20 years that I lived there.
And that was like right around the time you left Google, right? It was like 2014 when they started
Yeah,
coming in.
I had enough. I had enough of. I was like, no more.
Right. I mean,
I'm a
there's
Yahoo guy through and through.
sure. Since you were last on here, there's I think two albums, A Foul Form and Intercepted Message both came out.
Wow, I guess I
Yeah.
had. Wow.
It's been a minute, but I mean, hey, everyone's been awaiting this return, so I mean, this that's why this is so special.
Fucking
Um,
fun.
Were you guys kind of playing the songs from those albums this
Oh
last
yeah.
leg of tour?
Yeah, yeah, the last few tours. And then this most recent tour that we did, we were like, so there's a new album that's about to come out. There's a song that we released a couple weeks ago, but there's no, on this album, there's no guitars or keyboards. It was all composed on an SPDX sampler pad with Thomas and John. And the concept was they were just going to take one sound. They sampled one sound, I think from a synth, and made like different scales out of it. And that's the whole concept of the whole album. And so like we were gonna play, there were like three, maybe four songs from the album that we actually like practiced with John on guitar, but like it just didn't. He's like, I don't know, this doesn't sound, we would like, we did it in practice, and then we're like, let's just see how it sounds when we sound check. And so we would sound check with him. It was like, it sounded cool, but it was like something, it wasn't, it's like, this doesn't seem right. So I think we're going to find he doesn't want to play the sampler pads because they're just too tricky, and like, they're kind of janky.
Yeah.
So maybe they'll like he has a little keyboard that um, you can put different samples on. So maybe he'll do it with that. We'll definitely find a way to do it because the songs are cool.
Yeah. Have you ever dealt with that, like with you with what you were preparing, that like you didn't know how it would translate to the live setting from what was being recorded? Like, did you ever face that?
Yeah, I mean, with my own stuff, it's the more guitar pedals I incorporate, the more variables you introduce, and the more it's hard to like if there's a specific sound that I'm trying to get, if I have it going through like four different guitar pedals, I literally like have these cheat sheets where I like write the settings of the pedals, like a clock. It's like, okay, this is at 3 o'clock, this is at 6 o'clock, like this knob is at 8 o'clock. So like these like cheat sheets sometimes, because even if like on one pedal, if you like fuck with the knob just a little bit, it changes the entire sound. So you're never gonna get it perfect, but like just to ballpark it a little bit, I have this cheat sheets, and so I can understand why it's like for John trying to play the stuff on guitar when it was like a very specific sound that was sampled and going through like his guitar pedal chain, and it's like, oh, this just doesn't sound the way I want it to.
Yeah, it doesn't sound. Yeah, exactly. Uh, with these pedals, 'cause I'm kind of pedals aren't really my thing. I don't play guitar, but if you just unplugged a pedal and plugged it back in, is that gonna fuck up where it was?
It
Or
depends. It depends on the pedal. If it's like a digital pedal, yeah. But most guitar pedals are, I guess, analog, where you have an actual knob or dial that like,
that you're fucking with?
yeah. And so like even if you unplug it, if you have those settings exactly where they are, it'll sound the same.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up for me. Um, has there ever been an instance that it was like time to write and make some new songs for the band, for the OCs, and you just didn't know where to start with them? You're like, I don't know how to get this going.
No, it's always been either John coming in with like a riff, and sometimes he'll have a drum idea, or like just us jamming, you know, like when we get together and just jam for the sake of writing, it's usually a lot of fun, because there's no rules. It just goes wherever it goes, and we record everything, and then like, a lot of those practice recordings just kind of, it's like a lot of aimless jamming, but then like, and you can always feel it when it just like starts to hit this this zone that like none of us could have just sat down and like written, you know, it just gets to this one place that we're all like firing on like
All the cylinders
all the
together.
cylinders. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like, and then he goes back that night and like, it's like, okay, between like 16 minutes and 19 minutes, we like got into this zone that's really cool. So we get together the next day and we like just focus on this thing, this like 3 minute part, and then we refine it and it becomes a song. Like, that's really fun. And then there's also like, um, John will be like, hey, we're gonna start jamming and writing in 3 weeks. So like, I want to start writing riffs. Send me drum parts, and so maybe I'll like sample some other drum breaks from other artists' music, or I'll like sit down and just record myself playing drums, and then like, and then and then like play drums along to it and like pan them, and then and then he'll write riffs to that. Or like Dan will come up with some drum loops. It's like there's not really a set.
Way of doing it.
It's always changing. That's why it
Yeah.
was cool that he was like, okay, we're going to use samplers on this. And the whole point was to not only just use one sound and make scales out of them, but it was also like, besides Tim, like me, Dan, John, Thomas, we'd all be like playing like rhythmically in unison. Um, so it's kind of like how we like jammed and wrote the songs. Like if you watch this, it'd be like John and Thomas just like like playing these pads, but playing them like keyboards, but with drumsticks. So it was like they're using drumsticks, Dan and I are using drumsticks, and it's all like this.
It's awesome.
But they were like, punk songs basically.
Yeah, I heard the a foul form that was like
Yeah.
finally the punk album.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like, oh yeah, the Fall Form was the punk album. This one I feel like is punk too, but it's like, if you were to watch them actually playing these parts, it'd be like, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Um Going back to like the technique of coming in together and like jamming for a while and finally find like and John goes back and finds these grooves. Hey, like we'll just focus on from here on out. Is it hard for you to get into that groove after not being able to get there how you naturally got there, or is it like a starting point that's like here's where I'm starting from and let's expand out?
Sometimes, but only because, like, when we record our practices, we don't use like, it's not like a studio quality recording. It's like he uses a digital recorder and he has two microphones, but the space is so small and there's like no give to it at all. So there's no nuance, like Dan and I actually sometimes, like every recording kind of, once we actually get into the studio, like compared to the practice space, it's like, oh, I can actually really hear what you're playing now. It's like in the practice space, it's fucking like like I said, there's no give to the walls. The sound is just bouncing, and it's just like it's like a wall of noise. And so like I can kind of make out what I'm playing, but like if enough time has passed, it's hard for Dan and I to each decipher what exactly we're playing unless we remember. Unless it's like the next day and we're like, oh yeah, I remember I was playing this. But like sometimes there'll be a recording where, weeks later he's like, oh man, I was re-listening to this thing. It's like, I can't tell what the fuck I'm playing here, man. We kind of like basically come up with like an adaptation of like what I was playing. But like, yeah, oftentimes we get into the studio and we're like, oh shit, okay, I need to change my part because like what we were playing this whole time turns out it's not really like
Lining up the way
they're
that you
not
thought it
working with
would.
each other. Yeah.
Mhm. Is there ever a time that you're playing something and you just give it to Dan, like, here, you play this part and I'll come up with another part and vice versa?
Sometimes, yeah, like especially if it's a, like I was saying earlier, how sometimes I'll come up with just beats on my own and record them, and then like come up with a beat to play along to it that I feel works. I mean, I nobody wants to be told exactly what to play, so I'm not like play this exact thing. So it's kind of like
Interpretation.
his interpretation of it. But really, it's like when we get to the studio, and if we listen to a playback, and it's like these are like too jumbled, you know. Oftentimes we have to like kind of rework parts, and it's just that's just like the nature of drumming, just the nature of like using multiple percussive beats. Like sometimes on their own they sound really cool and they work with the bass and guitar and keyboards, but like when you have two separate percussion patterns, like sometimes they don't gel.
Mesh.
But when they
Yeah.
do, and then it's like it's so much better than one drummer, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's awesome, man. When you're coming up with just ideas on your own, are you literally just sitting there at the kit with nothing else, just like, let me just try some stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be like maybe on the drive to the practice space, I'll have like heard a song and be like, oh, I like the feel of this, and then it's like fresh in my head. But usually it's like the first thing that pops into my head. Unless I do have like a playlist, like a Spotify playlist that it's like a drum breaks playlist that like when I'm working on music, I'm like, oh, this is like a cool like drum loop. Sometimes it's like a punk song. A lot of like, you know, like mid to late 70s or like early 80s punk songs would just start with just like a drum break, like, and a lot of times they were like crudely recorded, but it's like funk breaks, from like the late 60s where they were recorded at not the nicest studio, but because of that, they have like a really cool quality. Like I was talking about drum tones earlier, like a lot of times, like just like the tonal qualities of the studio itself, like some like shitty studio from like the late 60s, this like awesome funk drummer like laying it down, and it's just there's like sonic qualities to a drum break. Like, some of the best drum breaks, it's not just what the drummer is playing, it's just like the production of it. And there's a lot of punk drum breaks that are like that too, where it's like, you know, there's like a few discharged beats that I'm like, oh, this is such a sick drum break. And so like sometimes I'll take that and loop it, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, you really have a lot of different avenues that you're pulling from to create these.
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Because Warm Drag isn't a band anymore, but like we kind of sucks because we had almost finished recording a second album. We just couldn't like agree on like the last few songs, and we just called it.
I mean, and these things happen,
They
and
had hey,
no bad blood.
bands,
Yeah, bands.
but I have all these tracks, and there's like this singer. I'm not gonna. She like has her own thing going, but like she and I started working on music. I'm not gonna say who it is until we actually like put something out, but like these tracks that ultimately didn't end up getting used for Warm Drag, like I sent to her, and I'm now like coming up with new music for this project. But yeah, now I'm like going back to my drum breaks folder, and I'm like, okay, I got this drum break and this drum break. And so sometimes I use those for OC's demos too.
If it works, if it
It
feels right.
worked, yeah.
What is it like when you finally hear a new song that you and Dan are both playing in like in a actual recording studio or whenever that first time is? How does and it does mesh and it does feel good and you think,
Oh, it's
okay,
the
this
best.
is
It's the best feeling because you know, John is one of those people who he took like he and I are like on the same page when it comes to drum sounds. Like I think I've talked about with you in the past where like there's like it's why I hate 90s rock. I hate the fucking drum sounds. Like I hate that 90s drum production. And so like John totally gets it when it comes to like what I think are cool drum sounds. And so when I hear the playback of like Dan and I playing in the studio and I'm like, yes, it gets so pumped. It's the best feeling.
I bet I've never been there, but I believe you. I think it's the best.
Yeah, man.
Are you
Hey, I'm not bullshitting you.
hey, no, come on. On the 200th? On
Yeah,
the
come
third
on,
time
not
coming on?
any other time, maybe, but not
Yeah.
not tonight.
No, not not this time.
Yeah,
Um, are you always stage right and Dan's always stage left?
yeah, yeah,
And that's just the way it goes.
yeah. That's that's the way the boss man wants it.
Boss man being Tim.
Yeah, yeah, man.
All right. Very good.
Big him.
Yeah. Shout out to Tim. Does there tend to be a song with every tour that you just really like playing that it like becomes your favorite song to play on the tour?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Oftentimes it's like um, when we there are a lot of songs that we seem to play like every tour, and I think when we kind of step outside of that box and it's like, oh, let's play this one that we haven't played in a while. Usually that's like my favorite. Like the last show that we played on this tour in Amsterdam, it was like one of the best shows of the tour. Crowd was great, and we just like towards the end of the set, he was like, let's try this song, and we played like four songs that we hadn't played all tour. And um, but what's like, I mean, I as much as animated violence kicks my ass physically, it's still like I love playing that song. You know,
What's like a runner up, a secondary to that one that's a favorite or that has been a
um,
favorite as of recently?
probably Encrypted Bounce because every time we play it, it's slightly different. We always that's one of the ones we always stretch out, and so like once we get going, it like when it's like a night where people are like totally dialed in. There was like we played in fuck, what was the name of it? There's a city in France that we played in that was like kind of a smaller city um, that we hadn't been to in a while, and it was like a smaller crowd, but everybody was like totally dialed in. And so like when we started stretching this song out, it like took it into some zones that we like never ever took it into before. So that like anytime we do really long extended jams and improv, that's like my favorite part of the set because it's like it really is different every night.
And that's why you like it.
Yeah,
All right. Paul, dude, thank you so much for coming back on, man, and thank
pleasure.
you for being here for the big two hundo, and I really do
Congratulations.
appreciate it.
Seriously, I'm really that is that shows that you're very dedicated to your craft and you're really good at it. And I always like time really does fly when we're just like shooting the shit.
We're just chit chatting here. Yeah,
Just two dudes like gabbing away.
that's what I love to do here. And Paul, man, thank you so much for coming back
My
for
pleasure,
this
man.
episode. Um, and people can stay up to date with what you're doing just by following you on Instagram, right? Like you'll be like talking about this expensive
Yeah,
shit and
yeah.
all this.
Especially like once I'm once I like have the album finished and I send it in to the pressing plant, then I'll start posting stuff online and like um there's gonna be a lot of stuff coming out.
Very cool. And you're gonna be posting about all that stuff on Instagram. Is that the best
Yeah.
place? Cool. And that's at Paul Quattrone on Instagram. So go ahead and go give him a follow if you're not already following him. And if you are, unfollow him and follow him back just to make sure
Yeah.
that he knows. And of
Anytime I get
course,
that +1, I'm like, all right,
yes,
got a
yeah.
new stuff.
uh yeah, the DOC's music streaming everywhere wherever you get your music. And is Intercepted Message, is that still the newest album?
As of now, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then Sork's 80 is the new one, and that should be out. I think it's out in August.
Okay,
But
very
there's like
cool.
another single coming out in July. Um, then yeah, album in August.
Very nice. And is that out through In the Red again?
Castle Face.
Castle Face.
Castle
Okay,
Face is back, yeah.
cool. Well, for now, people can go get Intercepted Message through In the Red Records .com, and through the Bandcamp is where a bunch of other stuff is, which is
Mhm.
at ocs.bandcamp.com. And some merch is there, and also it's at Castle Face Wax Toys is like another place to go.
Wax Toys is the merch. So I was talking about our merch duo, Barry and Delaney. That's their whole like merch setup thing. So you can buy directly from them through Waxface.
All right, awesome. And that's the best place for people to go get that stuff.
Yeah,
Rad.
like
Okay.
T-shirts and
Posters and
all that.
vinyl,
Yeah, yeah.
all that good stuff. Okay, rad. And that'll be linked below. And people can go visit the website, docs.com, to stay up to date with shows and whatnot as well. And there's an Instagram, right? The OCs underscore merch or something.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, fuck.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
it'll be linked below. So
Yeah, I
go
think it's
follow that
OC's
account.
merch.
Okay, rad. And second leg of this European tour is coming up here.
Yeah, we have like few like mini tours in August and then a US tour in September and October.
Awesome. Okay, so keep an eye out for those kind of dates. That's going to be awesome. And do we have anything else, Paul, to promote?
That's pretty much it, man.
All right, good deal. Hey, Paul, thank you for being here. Thank
Thanks
you
for having
everybody
me.
who listens and watches. It means a lot to me that even if you do spend just a little bit of time listening to it, that means a whole bunch. And more to come. And Paul, thank you again, man.
Thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you, sir. It really means a lot to me. Your compliments.
All right.
I do appreciate that. Thank you, sir. And I'm gonna stop recording this. I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.